civilization. A hero from another time. On the starship Andromeda, hope lives again.
You guys want to watch some Andromeda?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sure.
I'm actually kind of optimistic after last episode.
I know, it's wild, right? So, we're here with episode 5. This will be the last in our first 5s for Andromeda, and we'll decide whether we want to carry it on or not, depending on the fate of this episode, I think.
Hold on. Idle, can you recall my scores from the first 4 episodes?
I can indeed. Your scores in particular. So, Under the Night, the first episode, you gave a 5, perfectly cromulent.
Right.
Affirming Flame, you gave a 1. You hated it.
Yeah.
To Loose the Fateful Lightning, you were a 0.2.
Yeah.
And D-0, 8. That's a wild ride.
What is going on with this series, guys?
We reflect
It's
pretty
like
much the same.
it's like if you watch like Encounter at Farpoint, Code of Honor, and then like you just drop like Ensign Row in the middle of it.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on, but
I have no idea what
It's
to
fun.
expect. Other than this is going to be a tier-heavy episode. Let's go with the trailer.
We're tier. There you go.
This should be a tier. I think this is a tier. Folks.
it's tier time.
Tier time. We're going to tier the tiers. Right, let's go. Trailer.
I don't think so, Tim.
If I'm not back in a
You look
day,
like him,
everything
too.
You've got it to make
I know.
it happen.
On an all-new Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda.
I am Tyr.
I want him.
Seduced by the power
Oh,
of
no.
his own kind, an alliance will form, and a trust will be betrayed.
It's the sound of Nietzsche's boarding, Captain Hunt.
An all-new Gene Roddenberry.
The way he says
Oh,
He really wanted to say something other than Hunt right there.
Yeah. All
I
right.
feel like his line reads might be getting worse
Mm.
over time here.
Yes.
Sounds like Tyr is going to talk to someone about betraying the crew again.
Like he loves it. He loves it. He craves betrayal.
Go on. What are we going to go for? Auto? What was your pre?
When that trailer started, I just thought about how you kept reminding us that they wanted like less thinky, more sex. I'm like, wow,
I mean,
this,
that's not until like season
this
4.
early? I know. I did not like
I
what
just
I
was
saw of that
watching-
trailer.
Yeah, no, the
It's-
softcore porn, not really feeling
Yeah.
it, really.
There's every bad trope. Keith was not reading the lines real well. I'm gonna go with a 2 out of 10 just because they've proven that they err on the side of terrible when they're given the option. So
Yeah, I'm also gonna have to be pessimistic here. Not as pessimistic as if we'd gone episodes 1, 2, and 3 into this. I'll give it a 4,
Okay.
and that's being optimistic.
That's a hopeful 4. I will. Trailers aren't usually indicative of like the quality of the episode because
What are you telling me that the club music in the latent image trailer wasn't absolutely indicative
exactly
of that
my
episode's
point.
content?
Exactly my point. That very copyrighted background
So
music.
sad that got copyrighted. I wanted to use that all over the channel.
But
can you imagine if someone grew up on Andromeda, big Andromeda fan, that's all they watched? They're like, boy, I sure love sci-fi. And then they were introduced to Star Trek. Can you imagine how big their world would get?
Yeah, no, a drowning man introduced to water.
Saying
That'd
that,
be awesome.
my dad actually has a likes that kind of campy science fiction show over more serious, gritty, drama-y things. So I kind of
Yeah,
think he
cool.
is
I've
the
got a show
person.
for it's called Farscape.
Yeah, yeah. Even that would be a bit too, bit too realistic for him. I think.
God.
Yeah, he actually unironically loves Batman Forever as well.
For him. Oh my god.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. Oh no, I haven't given my pre-rating. I'll go for hopeful 5, and I wish to be surprised.
Subscribed?
Let's. Yeah. Gosh.
There's
Let's
plenty
go
of room
and-
down here in 2. I'll be waiting to welcome you guys in a few minutes.
Open the doors. come
Don't
on in.
worry, I've got my hand on the button ready.
Yeah. I think within the first 5 minutes we'll know exactly what kind of episode this is.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably.
Let's go and watch it. Gentlemen, did you know that everything deep loves misery? What? Okay, I have a big question about this episode.
You know, I've got good news for you, Idol. No matter what you say, like to open the show, it won't be nearly as dumb as this episode. So
Sure.
just, go off.
What
Have
happened?
fun.
What actually happened in this episode? Like, and I'm not talking about the whole Tyr double, basically Tyr went off, had a little bit of a double cross moment, came back and didn't. What was the rest of it? What was half of the stuff that occupied the 40 minutes of space apart from Rade narrating over the sex scene? Like,
you know what it is? This is a Star Trek episode where they do a deep dive on a cast member's culture if that culture was fucking stupid.
it really is.
Because, here's the problem, right?
I feel like I was reading Elon Musk's fan fiction. Like, it was full of alphas and fathering 22 children and...
Because, the problem is that, they've been saddled with the concept of the Nietzscheans by Gene Roddenberry, and it's such a Gene Roddenberry conception, right? And so, they can't just ignore it. They can't pretend that this isn't part of the show's lore and world. So they have to deal with it. And you can't just not do episodes about Tyr's race, because then it looks weird, and it's well, you're not giving the cast member stuff to delve into, right? But the problem is, imagine if the Klingons were just fucking stupid. Not the kind of stupid that they actually are in lore, but if the concept behind them was just fucking dumb and no one cared and no one liked them.
You can see the elements of TNG Klingons and Romulans. You can see some TOS Klingon in there. You can kind of see the melding up, but they're all the worst aspects of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of the honor of the Klingons, it's their insidiousness and their backstabbing, and it's
Do you know what threw me
you
as
get
well?
the bloodlust. This is not sex. I have no place for it in my life now, or whatever the hell Worf says. It's that was this whole episode.
It's the weird contrast between, I don't think they know exactly what to do with it, because on one hand you've got someone like Rade in this scene who's very conniving and sort of very deceptive, and then you've got Tyr, who is your Worf analog trying to do the right thing as people. You've got the alpha, who, whatever, Gandhi or whatever his name was,
Gadarian,
who was just I'm the big man, I father 22 children,
Gruyere cheese.
And then you've got his mum, who turns up. Who just
Dude, she was so down for the three of them, by the way.
It was just like the matriarch for this group of pirates, and she's so elegantly well dressed, and just a normal person goes, oh yes, his DNA is fire, and here's fire, and just it's such a weird mishmash of things that people have. That's what I can kind of equate Andromeda to. It's a weird mishmash of things no one's actually thought through properly. No one's spent the time to say, right, we need to spend the next 2 hours working out the ins and outs of this race. They've just gone to paper straight away.
I did finally get an answer to something I've been wondering for a while. Watching this episode, I realized why preteen into early teenage years me really had good fond memories of the shows, because that was the target audience that it was written for.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know why we're starting in the middle of this episode, because if we start at the beginning, I can't help but notice that you engineered my humanoid form with certain features that, strictly speaking, aren't necessary for my normal operations. I guess I'm wondering, Harper, when you made this body, who did you do it for? Wait, and then where's the other line? Oh, yeah, and when you handled certain parts of me, did you wear gloves? That was the first scene. That's what they wanted to open on and to set the tone, which I guess is an accurate tone setter.
Listen,
you know what the problem is? So, there's something, but, it's also a structural problem, right? So, when you create a cast member on Star Trek who is meant to be a representative of that race, they have to have a certain kind of interesting relationship with that race. If you look at the Klingons, right? Worf is the ideal Klingon who struggles against the reality of what Klingons are. And then you've got B'Elanna, who is a very different take on the same concept. She is half Klingon, half human, and she has to deal with that Klingon heritage being something that she dislikes and that she distances herself from, but she can't be fully rid of it, and that's a really interesting plot thread. And the problem here is we've got a load of Nietzscheans, right? And what they've done right with Rev Bem is exactly what they've done wrong with Tyr, which is that Tyr is just another Nietzschean. there is nothing unique about his relationship with the Nietzschean race that is really unique, other than the fact that he doesn't have a pride. And it's like, I don't have enough context to know how that's infecting his character, because from what I'm seeing and what this episode tells me, he's still just acting like a normal Nietzschean. He is not like the ideal Nietzschean who does everything more than everyone else. He is not less Nietzschean, which everyone looks down on him for. He's not more compassionate or less compassionate. He's just an average Nietzschean. And it's like, well, I'm not particularly interested in what an average Nietzschean does. I'm interested in what, like, Tia does. And he just spends this entire thing doing Nietzschean things.
There was that whole sort of part where they try and explain, like, oh, you know, my Kodiak pride was wiped out. You know, they fill in the big wad of backstory in there. But I don't know. It just feels like that was just there because, like, oh, we need a reason for Tia to do the inevitable betrayal.
Yeah.
And it just didn't feel like it mattered.
I think Tyr's closer to Worf, actually, than you're giving him credit for. Worf is not the ideal. He's much more reserved. And if you just watch him through early TNG and you think that's what all Klingons are like, they quickly show, no, it's not, actually. He's a bit of an outsider. He wants to be like a typical Klingon, but he's not really. And I feel like Tyr's a little bit the same. He's the last one of his tribe. If he were a typical one, we're episode 5, he would have double-crossed Hunt like 8 times by now. Because actually the Nietzscheans are just written as stupid, like, goon bad guys that have no brains, and they operate on instinct. So by him, like, they're slowly building this rapport. They're already showing that he has the ability to be a little bit more than, like, the goon squad Nietzscheans that they've shown everywhere else. So, but I mean, you're close. But I think they are trying to differentiate him, including in this.
They're
episode.
trying to, but it's like the fact that the moral of the episode is "I trust you to be you," and it's like it doesn't feel like they've done enough to separate Tia from the average Nietzschean, other than the fact that he knows what the Andromeda is capable of, and that the main characters are going to do something smart. Like
I didn't take that as the moral of the episode. Like, he's telling them, you know, because they're playing Go now. He's his new first officer, and as they play this game, this battle of wits, he's telling them, I know to still be on my guard because there's the potential that you could double cross me. I know you're going to be you. But I think that whole last conversation was also, he also told him, I'm still trying to win your trust. So I think it's like, that actually was probably the only good dynamic in this episode, was them.
The good dynamic is Hunt and Bem in that conversation.
Well, yeah, that's
really
true. But
that's the actual best scene of the episode, which we're all going to have to.
But I like that last scene, because I felt like they're still feeling each other out, and they're tying this thread through multiple episodes. So I didn't mind that. I'm still going to give this like less than a 1, but I did like that scene. So.
Do we, you know, this episode just went all over the place in terms of pacing as well. Like, it was 42 minutes long, and I'm just like, again, and this is a problem with a lot of Andromeda, they're either breakneck speed, everything's happening at once, 15 different things have happened in the space of an episode, or we're still waiting for this one thing to happen, and everyone's talking their way around it, and we're just like, but everyone, Tyr's, like, double-cross mission wasn't, we didn't get the conflict from Tyr's characterization to warrant whether we as an audience could figure this out. Because at some points I'm just like, what is even happening? He's gone down. He's come back up. He's wearing a different coat. We don't know how he's feeling.
That was the
he's
point.
not open. Yeah, but he's not open. The problem is, you know, keeping the audience in the dark works when you're in on a part of the plot, when you're guessing. At this point, I'm more trying to guess where people are on the ship and what's exactly going on, as opposed to what part of this critical plot is Tyr involved in. At one point, he's back on the Andromeda. The next moment, he's got his tricorder in the vent, and the guy's like, "Look at him, he's doing something suspicious." I'm like, come on, can we just like bring this down to a better level, please? I don't know. I just felt like completely like this episode was like a wash. It was like a haze of double cross plots thrown at my eyes, and I just didn't care about any of them.
See, the problem here is that, like, so the only way that this plot works is, like, as Oliver pointed out, they are building up this rapport between Hunt and Tyr. So you can only do a double-cross plot where you genuinely believe that Tyr might double-cross them early in the season. Like, if you do this at the end of the season or in season 2, you won't buy it, right? Like, you won't. But it's, like, been 5 episodes. They're still on the rocks a little bit, so that's the only time you can really do it, and it has any weight. But the problem is that, like, we get all of the exposition about what the Nietzscheans do literally while it's happening. Like, none of this has been set up ahead of time, so you're kind of being filled in on the emotional states as it's happening. So there's no real, like, build of tension. You don't genuinely believe that Tyr's actually going to do it because, A, he's in the main credits, which is unavoidable, but also just, like, there's no... I don't know if it's a case of the acting isn't coming through well enough, like on Keith Hamilton Cobb, I believe his name is, or if it's just the scripting. But it's like you don't. He has to be a husband and a father. That's the most important thing to a Nietzschean. It's like, he doesn't seem all that interested in it.
It's just
like,
read out to us. It's tell, not show.
In the David Attenborough-esque narration, and it's like this is the worst way you could potentially film.
No, actually, David Attenborough would elevate
someone's.
This. Here we find the Nietzschean pride. Observe as their leader attempts to seduce the younger one.
I think that's another.
You go.
Finish your point.
Well, yeah, it's just like I don't feel like the emotional conflict of your episode should be delivered by your treasonous first officer character who died in the first episode in like a weird wildlife nature documentary. Like, I don't feel like it's the appropriate way to deliver exposition because you're kind of stealing that moment from Tyr.
I think you've kind of illustrated a point to me. This did feel like a wildlife documentary on the Nietzschean race. I think that's what it was because, you know, he's doing that walkthrough with Freya through the Pride and you kind of got like the head monkey sitting at the top of his chairs with his many wives. You know, it feels like one of those walrus in habitats or something like that. You know, there's the dominant...
A little bit racist too, this
episode.
It
very much is.
Yeah,
it's a lot of stroke, you know, painting with one stroke. You know, it's
even the part we like with Rev Bem, where he reassures Dylan. He's like, you're not prejudiced. Otherwise, you know, you would have shot me.
On sight. Yeah.
And Dylan goes, yeah, but you're one of the good.
All my best friends.
Like he didn't say that exactly, but he basically said it. Where it's like, oh boy, even this scene, which we all kind of liked, is like, maybe you could leave out the racial aspect. And I know they're discussing prejudice, but let me back up because I like something Star said about this is the time to do that story. How many Star Trek stories have they tried to make you believe that someone's going to die or is in jeopardy, and it never works? Never, ever, ever. Maybe Tasha, if you cared about her halfway through season one. Yeah. And that was, you know, mid-season one where something might have happened. So this is the time to do it. And even if his name's in the credit, maybe he double crosses him. Maybe he takes the Andromeda and Hunt goes out in an escape pod. And the next episode is him trying to retake the ship. There are still some threads where you could believe, okay, maybe there's a little bit of peril here. So I didn't mind that aspect of it either. I keep talking about things I liked, even though this was a pretty bad episode.
Well, speaking of, do you want to know? This was written by Joe Reinkemeyer and Matt Keane. Both of them, and again, it's another weird writing duo. I feel like the Andromeda writers can only get people who work in pairs fairly often, but they've both worked on some episodes of Space Above and Beyond, 13 episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 17 episodes of Andromeda, and then nothing at all until one random 2009 Law and Order UK episode, and then they did nothing else.
Incredible.
This was directed, this is my favourite part, directed by Mike Roll, who is famously known for his work on the films The Princess Switch, The Princess Switch Switched Again, and The Princess Switch Romancing the Star, and some various TV credits. Those are his...
I thought you were going to say Romancing the Switch.
Yeah. Yes, it's the new Nintendo film.
By the way, speaking of Romancing the Switch, maybe the best/worst scene, you already touched on it with the nature documentary. Rade is narrating some random bullshit over
this is why I
Tyr having
games.
sex with his newly minted wife or whatever. It was like the weirdest thing because they're both like outrageous. Like the sex scenes, like it was dumb.
Yeah.
The narration was dumb, but you couldn't focus on either one because they were both distracting each other from it. It made no point. It made no lasting impact.
It's literally like two people talking into you at the same time. It's like my children when they're both trying to tell me something, and it's just like, no, stop, both of you. I need one at a time, please. Sex or Attenborough, I can't have both.
Okay, I got to ask you guys about this line, which I think we all thought was like dumb and out of place, but then they kind of tied it in. Hunt says, Andromeda, gradual adjust AP solenoid valve to increase anti-proton mass by 10% an hour until my explicit counter order. We're like, what the hell are you talking about? Turns out it was just a self-destruct, but they didn't want the audience to know that so they could fool on them later. Was that good? Like, was it
I
a decent
don't know.
twist
No.
that actually?
It felt like,
okay.
I'm gonna
Really,
make Hunt like it's his revolution. It's like, the captain, he knows he's got something in his head. He's got a plan where he sort of steps into action. We commoners don't need to know about his high, higher than thou plan. He's got it in the bag. That's kind of what I kind of got from that.
My problem with it is that it underscores another like structural problem that Andromeda has, which is that it appears to have some degree of like made up lore and technology and like things that do things, right? Like a Heisenberg compensator or a dilithium crystal. But it has not explained any of this to us. I don't know what the fucking AP core is because it's not come up once in any of the 5 episodes. Like,
And probably will never
it's
again.
not proper. Yeah, probably never again. I wouldn't be surprised if the law changes the next time they decide to use it. And it's just like, it would be one thing if they had gone like, "Hey Andromeda, I want to talk to you about something," and then like he gives like a look at Tyr or whatever, and then you cut away, and then you cut back when he does the reveal, and it's like, "I need you to get the self-destruct primed and ready to activate under my command, silent countdown." Like that would be just better, but it's like here, you're just like you're slapping your technobabble dick on the table, going, "You don't know what this is," and then when you reveal what it is, you're like, "Ha ha! You had no idea what it was," and I'm like. No, of course I fucking didn't. You didn't explain it. Like, it's just... I recently rewatched the Netflix film Glass Onion, right? Like the Ryan Johnson movie, that Murder Mystery with Daniel Craig. And like, if you're looking closely enough at the clues, like this is my 3rd or 4th time watching it, you can just see plain as day that things are set in motion and that people are holding items and that things are being done in the background if you're paying attention to them. Like, if you're setting something up in the fort, you have to actually properly set it up. You can't just, like, put something down on the table, cast a magic cloud over it, and then go, "Ooh, I'm so clever for setting this up." It's like, no, you're just being lazy. Like, you want the plot, but you don't want to work for it.
Someone missed the point of technobabble. Someone missed the point of technobabble.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's there in Star Trek to not just go like, "Oh, look how clever we are." It's a little bit of look how clever we are, but also this has a logical place into this
It's immersion.
It's a little bit immersion. This kind of just felt like Picard standing on the bridge and going, "Alpha Tango 3-4, disable the full forward flaps and increase thrust to my anus,"
which they have done a couple of times, but
but I think it then gets
and we usually call it out when it happens, when there's like a lame technobabble excuse where like that was a writing shortcut you could have not taken with, and it would have been better.
We are technobabble connoisseurs, but this so we had all of TOS, we had all of TNG, we had all of DS9 at this point. And most of Voyager. So you've got almost four whole series there. Their Treknobabble is not good.
But even
and if you want good Treknobabble, we've started Voyager watch-alongs, and I'm going to be doing some more soon. Go watch early Voyager, because they spit it out so fast as they do in this. But everyone responds naturally, and they react naturally, just like it's another jargon that everybody's used to, and it feels this feels stilted. That never feels stilted, because everyone just rolls with the punches and they keep going. They don't stop and freeze frame or zoom in on someone as they're delivering the jargon. It's just completely natural.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a good point. Like, it's like Technobabble never makes a good scene ender. Like, the Technobabble is a way to get from point B to C, and then you end on point D.
I think
you don't end on the Technobabble, because it leaves you like this. You're like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's part of the delivery as well. Like, if you say say like, "Oh, initiate the Polaron pulse," you go like, "Okay, that is as a viewer, like, that's a thing." Someone goes, "The Polaron pulse is broken." Oh no, something bad's happened. They use Technobabble in a way to advance the plot or the technical parts of the plot without drawing to the fact that what the fuck is a Polaron pulse? We don't know, but we know it's plot critical. This was just like, have some shit.
Probably the best example of that ever is at the end of part 1 of Best of Both Worlds, where they've already talked about what this new huge weapon is, but when it comes down to brass tacks, what is the line that Riker delivers? "Mr. Worf, fire," because that's the big emotional hook. It's not Andromeda gradually adjust AP solenoid valve to increase antiproton mass, blah blah blah. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's wild, and like you said, Auto, like you've had all of Star Trek, you've had lots of other sci-fi series going on. I mean, no, Stargate is well into its like third or fourth series by this point, and that's another great show. And I know you guys haven't watched, but it's up there in terms of consistency. But it's had all this stuff to pull from, and you've even got Robert Hewlett-Wolf producing this, and that kind of this makes me really doubt his credentials or anything like that, because it's just such a wash. It's just so feels like it's hanging on by a couple of shoestrings and off the back of like all these amazing sort of science fiction concepts, and just not doing anything with either. It's doing what Enterprise did to Star Trek with sci-fi. It's treading old ground for no reason.
Yeah. Can I also talk about the fact that this is a persistent problem in Voyager, right? Where like they would take massive amounts of damage, and there would be no signs of it in the episode, unless it was a specific episode like Year of Hell where it was important. And also they don't bother to even respect like what happened in previous episodes with damage to the ship. And it's like the ship got rocked with a massive plasma cannon charge, and by the next episode, I'm sure it'll be completely fine.
Yeah.
Like how many android bodies got destroyed in the first 2 episodes? They're just wandering around in the background now. It just doesn't matter.
Just big bags of android heads. Yeah.
And it's like, why should I even pretend to care that the ship is getting blown to pieces? You're just gonna like have it be fine at the next episode because you don't have any interest in Battlestar Galactica in showing a persistent amount of damage, or even like the show that in like about 3 years, Enterprise did this in season 3, where it was like every hit that Enterprise took in season 3 was there. It lasted throughout the entire season. When entire chunks of the hull went missing, they were gone for the rest of that season, and it made it feel impactful. And it's like the Andromeda here is ostensibly like the last ship of its kind, the last thing of the Commonwealth. And it's like, I don't really feel like it is on its own. Like, yes, there's no people on board, but it seems to be doing pretty completely fine without it. Why aren't we having any instances where we need to do this thing on the ship? Hunt, we can't do that. We literally don't have people on those stations. Like, what were all those people?
I mean, Star Trek suffers from that as well. There's definitely been moments where they've said, we've got 4 people on the ship. It's fine. We can fly it. It's okay.
Yeah, but they at least do lip service to have like an automation center that will overload, like in Search for Spock. Here, I question what the fuck was the point of that guy on the point defense cannon in episode 1 and making a big thing about its response time. Yeah, exactly. Like, what was the fucking point of Thompson when we can clearly have the ship operating at that same level of efficiency with just 5 people on the bridge?
Yeah. They call out their own plot holes. There's that one, and then the one that they kind of dance around is the ship is 300 years old, but easily outclasses everything it comes across. Which I guess in episode 4 they did do a little bit of damage taking, but then, like you say, it was wand waved away in episode 5. So
nanomachines, son.
All right, let's jump to something that may be good or maybe not be good. That scene with Rev Bem and Hunt, which, by the way, Hunt was actually good.
I know, that's wild.
Relative to everything else, he was an all-star. But he, I guess, I don't know if he calls him into his quarters or whatever, but Hunt says, I have something to confess. I'm here to make peace with the Nietzscheans, but inside me, I want to kill every single one of them because of him, Garrus Rade. And so there's a little bit of well, no, I mean, I like that because that's been a through line so far, and we get how he double crosses him, and they bring him up again because it is a Nietzschean episode. And so
sorry, is Hunt's consistency here, because he comes out as just basically borderline racist at this point. I want to kill everyone because I had one guy. Like, he's supposed to be the epitome of the Federation, of the Commonwealth. Like, I'm going to produce all this.
I kind of like that he's more fallible. I don't want an infallible.
But I feel like it all of a sudden just out of nowhere. So it's like, I just want to kill them all. But it doesn't. It's not represented in the character he's supposed to be, and that's kind of
I feel like they could have maybe done more with like the tension between him and Tyr in terms of like developing on that kind of quote unquote racial thing. But then it's like we come back to that point we brought before, where it's like it's uncomfortable doing that.
He's clearly not not bothered by it all, because he's still got a picture with him and his first officer on his desk, which he occasionally picks up and reminisces about, that time he cheated at Go. So it's sorry. Anyway, I'm going to stop interrupting.
All right, so he does it behind closed doors, which makes sense because if you want to be the leader, the Snow White leader out there, you can't let it out in front of everyone. You have to do it somewhere else. The picture thing was kind of funny. I didn't hate it. Like, if you have an ex, maybe you keep pictures of her still on your hard drive. You went on a vacation somewhere. Do you delete them immediately just because you're past them? No. If you see them, maybe it makes you a little sad or a little angry. Like, they're trying to flesh him out by giving him emotions other than make stupid jokes in the middle of the heat of battle. So I do appreciate that much.
Idealistic, yeah.
But then the line which I alluded to, where Bem goes, as a Magog, you should have shot me on sight. He goes, it's not the same. You're a wayist. You're the most peaceful person I know, which is, the equivalent of I have black friends. So,
well, you know what? It's even kind of worse than that. It's like, it's him saying, I know that your race is genetically predisposed to murder and rape, but your religion makes it fine. If ever, that's almost makes it even worse in a way, if you think about it.
Okay. How about...
hold on. All right. Before we move on, can we just give a quick rating to that single scene? I think we remember it well enough because we just saw it.
Gosh.
The Hunt Bem scene. I don't think we've ever rated a single scene before, but what would you rate that for a scene of Andromeda, 1 to 10?
For a scene of Andromeda, that's easily like an 8, I think. Like, that is
I'll go with that.
Genuinely good scene of Andromeda. It's consistent with the characters. It's the first time that Kevin Sorbo is like matching the level of acting ability being brought by I think his name is Brent Strait. I think his name is in the credits for Rev Bem. And it's like it's the closest that it is cribbing off of the Kirk. I've never forgiven Klingons from Undiscovered Country, but it's at least in like a way I believe. And guess what? If you're going to crib off of Star Trek, steal the good stuff. Don't steal the bad shit. It's like,
which they also did.
That's a good scene. Well, yes, they did that plenty.
Idle, what would you rate that?
I'd probably go about the same 7 or an 8 somewhere. Maybe I'll split a different 7.5. 7.5.
I'd probably give it a 9 because, like I said, it's also he's doing decent acting. He does have a couple quips, but they're actually funny and kind of make sense to the script. So, I did enjoy that scene. It kind of carried the episode for me. It was sandwiched in between, like, the mom coming onto Tyr as they're trying to get him to take her daughter as well, and then the scene where they actually do it. So it's like, boy, that was
his
something.
calf muscles, like. Ugh.
Dude, if they had the budget, that would have been played by Jane Seymour, and I would have liked Andromeda even more than I did at the time.
Oh, what's her name? Q from James Bond. Not Q. M.
What?
M.
Oh, Judi
Dench. Yes, that would have been Judi Dench.
No way, dude.
Do you have a fetish that you want to talk about?
I don't think Judi Dench would have played the cougar in that scene.
Absolutely would have. Strapping, isn't it?
Oh, dude, I'm going to have a nightmare about that now. Keith Hamilton, Cobb, and Judi Dench.
Oh, my God. Okay, so
makes sense.
I want to talk about this. The Nietzschean shit as a way of getting around talking about sex by making it all around genes.
Oh God!
And I'm just like,
it's embarrassing. It's about DNA.
It really does feel like they almost kind of predicted the incel shit, like 20, 30 years ahead of time. But it's not like, because the incels aren't quite a thing yet. It doesn't criticize it. It just kind of presents it as if, like, look, it's this weird sci-fi thing, and it's like, it's such a the fact that fucking Hunt calls it out. He says, "Do you believe in love?" And then Rade's like, "Oh no, our love is even better than yours." And then Hunt just kind of leaves it alone. And it's like, "No, motherfucker, talk to me about love." But then Hunt clearly doesn't understand what love is either, because he's like, "Oh, it's like magic." It's like, no, there are ways to describe love that are a bit more multifaceted than like, it's like magic.
It's magic.
I wish he had that amount of lyricism.
You're going to think I'm being crude, but I think when we were all watching this scene and she asked him for a DNA sample, because of what had preceded it, we all thought there was about a 30% chance that it was not going to be blood. It might have been, They didn't go for that, thankfully, but I mean,
it could have that had actually ended with like the sound of a belt dropping.
And you know what? This is, But this is from the era when, hey nerds, this is how many
Deep on
women
gel.
you could have. You know, it's just like
Dude, the whole episode was about how many wives you could have. It was like took place. It's like they filmed it in Utah, so it actually would have fit with the script and what they were going for. Is like how many bodies can you collect?
In fact, you know what? Can I talk about this, right? So, the Nietzschean thing is all about being like a husband and a father, and about the woman has to be like basically the broodmare and produce as many children as possible. And I am going to use the word broodmare because that is what they're reduced to.
yeah.
Does it strike you as odd, gentlemen, that there are 3 female members of this crew, 2 of whom would probably have opinions on this culture being like kind of insanely sexist, and yet they were the 2 characters who had the least amount of dialogue in this
Yeah.
entire
It's the Gene
episode.
classic.
Yeah.
It's the Gene Roddenberry classic.
Such a basic male image.
I feel once I heard that one. But yeah, it's like, does it not strike you that this is from like 2000 and yet they are doing less introspection about sexual politics than TNG did like 15 years earlier?
Anyway, let's go on to bread. Gentlemen, what was your bread of the episode? What was the moment that stuck out to you the most? Oh, who should I hand? Who's going to get the golden goose this week? I'm going to pass it to Auto. Go on. Just run with it. What's your bread of the episode?
It's been baking for a while.
Some good bread.
Nothing really sticks out in my mind, but I guess I'm going to go with what I assume they wanted to stick in my mind, which was the opening scene for all the wrong reasons. Do you wear gloves when you're working on me, or like when you touch certain parts of me, or whatever she said?
Was
it's
nearly
so
flirtatious. It's like
that is interesting because when she so she cosplays taking damage as the ship, which is a little weird, but okay. And then B, when she's interpersonal stuff, she is flirty, shows a lot of emotions, some romance. But then C, the third side of her is sometimes when she's doing bridge exposition ship stuff, she shows zero emotion. So she doesn't feel like a single individual. She feels like 3 disparate parts of an individual that shows up based on who she's interacting with. But my bread is that scene. It's so gross. They're going to have to do a lot of work to redeem, what's his name? Seamus Harper. A lot of work, because it's not good. That's stuff that 11, 12-year-old me, just, going through puberty, would have probably appreciated. That's why I remember that stuff. But as an adult, and like you say, this episode not having any input from the women, as a functional adult, it's just not gross.
There is a reason.
That's my rotten bread.
Well, there is a reason one of the top posts on the Andromeda subreddit is, "Did you have a crush on Lexa Doig watching this?" There it is. Stars. I
did. But like I say, they're writing this for 12-year-olds. They're not writing this for adult, advanced science fiction buffs.
I would not show this to my children. Like, this sets a bad precedent. Go on, Stars.
Yeah, it really does. And it's also just like, you know what? Like, having a crush on Lexa Doig, like, I guess, like, if you just, like, purely focus on the physical things of it, but I just feel like, I don't know. I obviously don't know. I can't comment on what it would have been like in that age because I was A, gay, and B, a child, and I wasn't watching this at the time.
Oh, you poor gay child.
But it's like, I just look at her in this show and I feel bad for her. I feel like she's being, like, misunderused, and I feel like she's being, like, objectified, and I feel like she's probably a better actor than the show kind of deserves.
I've seen her some other stuff.
And it just makes me sad, honestly. Like, I feel like she's probably better than she's being given credit for. Like, this could be, in the right hands, a Data or an Odo or a Spock character, but instead it's just being played for TNA. Like, and guess what? You can even play that character for TNA. That's called 7 of 9, but if the writing is there, then it's fine. Like, well, it's not fine, but, like, it's better than this.
One of the differences is 7 of 9 primarily got to play against Kate Mulgrew, whereas Lexa Doig has to play opposite Kevin Sorbo for most of her scenes.
It's true.
So if iron sharpens iron, she's going to get much worse as the series goes on.
Yeah. So my bread is also going to be from the opening scene, but the other part of it where it's just Keith Houghton Cobb doing the pull-ups with the. So, like, my initial rating criteria from this episode, I'm going to lock this in, was Nietzschean hip thrust out of 10, because, like, I'm going to remember him doing, like, because it's meant to be like, look, he's so hot for the female viewer, and even as like a gay man, I'm like, this is going a bit too far. Like, this is just, there's no class, there's no mystery. Like, I'm not into it. It's just boring. That's probably like that weird kind of softcore like porno with the with Rade's narration.
A fourth of the episode was just either sex or grunting and shirtless people. That was a big chunk.
Yeah. Those are my breads.
No, my bread is also going to be the sex scene with the Attenborough narration. It was just wild that was. But
that is good.
It was just like, it was two voices in your head. One of the voices is trying to bang on the sofa. The other voice is trying to tell you why they cheat at games. And it's like, these have nothing to do with anything. Like, what's going on?
There are two wolves inside of you. One of them wants to have sex. The other one wants to play Go.
I mean,
3D
relatable.
Go. Yeah, it's not wrong.
These are the two male impulses.
There's that moment where she opens the case and there's like those two bracelets in there, and it's like, this is a new thing. Like, oh yes, we wear the metal bands to secure our DNA. I'm like, but why? Is it just what?
There's a lot of media out there that at the time was written for teenage boys and later became a cult classic because as they became adults, they had like the money to revisit stuff, buy merchandise, buy the film or whatever. This was obviously written for that same demographic, but it was so bad that like no one picked it up in later years.
Yeah.
Like we're the only people probably in the last 10 years on YouTube that are going to bother doing a review of this show. So
yeah, no, I can't think I've ever heard of an Andromeda comic book or a follow-on series.
It hasn't.
A follow-on book.
we actually
or a
we looked
reboot.
up the uniform. We couldn't find any merchandise for their uniforms because
No one cares.
No, really don't.
Imagine having zero cultural impact. Well done, guys.
Speaking of cultural impact, how about...
Killed while trying to escape.
Damn clever, if you ask me.
It's a classic.
That's what they wanted.
Who wanted us killed?
Since you're all stealing tropes anyway, why not let you?
His name is... Oh, no.
Son of a bitch. Okay. What especially tropey moments did you spot in this episode? What stood out to you as being stolen liberally from one of the classic parts of popular culture? Go on, Otto.
this one was, man, it was so blatant. They're counting down the seconds until they explode. 60 seconds left, and they have the longest monologue you've ever heard about this guy counting off his 22 kids, like naming each, Jaden, Faden, Layden, and Baden. And it's like, it's so bad because it's in everything. Everyone had to get their lines in, their whole speeches in, like while the computer's counting down the seconds to their death. And it's like, I hate that trope. I hate it so much. I always yell at the TV screen. I'm like, you have 30 seconds. What are you doing? So they pulled this one, man. It's a classic.
300 pretzels.
You see? A little persistence and patience pay off. That'll be $300.
Hey, I don't think so. I got me 300 coupons.
Wait for it.
I should have said limit, one per customer.
Should have but didn't I? So hands them over. Hey, kids, we're eating dinner tonight. Come on, Tiffany, Heather, Cody, Dylan, Dermot, Jordan, Taylor, Brittany.
Yeah, anyway, you get the point. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Go on.
My tropes is... So you can do a lot with chess or Go, whatever. Go is such a shitty version of it. Like, chess has, like... There's a reason you pick chess, because, like, there is a degree of strategy to it, there's a history to it, like, there's a degree of, like, romance to it because of, like, the way that all the pieces are styled. Like, X-Men's done it, freaking Star Trek's done it, like, Harry Potter did it. Like, everyone has done chess as a metaphor, and then they go for Go here.
It's one of the cultural touchstones of...
Yeah. And it's like... I understand what they were going for with the whole idea of cheating, and it's like, it does get the message across, but it was just like, I don't understand how to fucking play Go. Who knows how to play Go? Do you guys know how to play Go?
Never played it.
I know how to play 3D Go, but not regular Go. So.
And it's like the board game or the strategy game as metaphor for characterization is great. Like you can do a million conversations and like deep characterization moments about that. But here it's just delivered in like, especially delivered in the context of over that sex scene. It just it comes across as trying to intellectualize something that really does not deserve to be intellectualized. Boy.
Imagine if like Tyr's going to town and then they zoom in, he opens his hand, there's a go piece, like he's down on the. They're like, how did that get there?
It's got it from behind her ear.
Yeah, there's so many hilarious things they could have done, but instead they just confuse you with lameness.
I'm gonna go for the biggest trope is pretty much the plot. How many times have you seen in a Star Trek or whatever story of a person from a certain culture going and confronting a segment of his culture and then eventually having to have feelings of betrayal or except there was none of that in that part. They skipped over the part where Tyr was tempted into his civilization by any kind of degree of acting. But yeah, that's definitely happened to Worf. That's happened to Kira. That's happened to pretty much any other, to Quark. It's the biggest trope in any type of science fiction.
Well, the problem with it is also that the Nietzsche's have been built up as this race where like they have no honor and they'll just do whatever they do to win because it means that they're strong and they win, and that means they have the better genes. So like, I don't understand that this civilization kind of doesn't make any real sense in terms of how it survives, because no one should trust anyone. Why do you trust anyone to do anything in this civilization?
Romulans, though, in that regard.
Well, I think it's kind of like lions, where you have to swear fealty to the biggest and the strongest, otherwise he'll eat you. So there is sort of like the sense of fear that runs through.
Yeah, but there was no fear on display.
No, they didn't show it, but I think that's what they kind of wanted it to be.
Yeah, and it's like by their own species logic, Tyr did nothing wrong, and they're still salty about it just because they lost. And I'm like, that's not really a compelling plot thread. The reason why Worf's discommendation matters is because honor matters to the Klingons. The reason why Quark being disbarred by the FCA matters is because that's a big Ferengi cultural touchstone. The reason why it matters that Odo can't go back to the Great Link is because that's the thing he's been wanting his entire life, a community, and now he can't get that. And it's like, here it's like, well, you betrayed our pride, but we betrayed you first, and it's kind of in our species thing to betray you anyway, so fuck you, but also we can't really blame you. So it's like I don't really if they come back and be like, well, cool, you're here, I guess, but
even Dylan respected Tyr. Even Dylan respected Tyr more for being who he is than his own people.
Yeah.
Turns out the real Nietzschean is inside you all along. How about we move on to our...
It certainly was in this episode.
Is to just be yourself.
You're the worst thing that ever happened to Zek. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Actually, that's the second best piece of advice.
In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi Alliance.
No.
Just stop saying that.
Gentlemen, what were your best and worst moments from this episode? We're going to go with Stars first. What was your best?
Oh, goody! I get to jump in. So the best moment is easily the Rev Bem and Hunt scene. It's just the closest to a actual adult conversation between two good actors acting. It has its issues, of course, but there is actual characterization. It makes sense that these are the two characters that are going on. And it's what they feels like they've given Rev Bem this niche where he can consistently be written into an episode and be given a best scene, and meanwhile Chance and Harper just exist, and Becca Valentine got fuck all in this episode. Yeah. That character does not exist in this episode at all, apart from to make snarky comments and get beaten up.
Well, the worst fight scene I've actually seen in pretty much anything. I think that was nothing.
Yeah. If she had won, though, then it would have made our best tropes list, or the top tropes list.
Yeah. But whereas Rev Bem has this, his niche is I am the character you come to when you want to have a good character moment. And it's the fact that Trance and Harper and Valentine just don't have that. They're just we exist until the plot demands that we're important. Whereas Rev Bem is if you want to have a good scene, come over here in the cool kids corner. Worst moment? Fuck, there's so much to choose from. I I almost want to say that like extended Mexican standoff where he has the knife against like that guy's throat for like a year, while they're all just talking around it. But like that was kind of charming in a lame way.
Yeah. They stand there. You can have a standoff, and all of a sudden they just go like, "Well, he's got lots of muscles, and let's get him in the fry so I can fuck him." I'm just like, hang on a minute, can we just slow down a minute?
But my worst moment, fuck me. It's probably that guy having the temper tantrum watching Tyr like sabotage the plasma cannon.
Oh yeah,
because like that entire scene.
He briefly acted. That was hilarious.
Yeah, he was right,
What are you doing?
and that's kind of hilarious. But like, it's just such a silly scene. Like, I know why it has to be there, but it was played so badly. Oh, and I'm like the fact that like Keith McCall has been doing a pretty decent job in the series up until this point. But I think you said in the watch along, is this good acting or is it bad? And I was like, I think it's kind of good, but I'm not quite sure. I can't give you a definitive answer. Whereas like you look at what like Michael Dorn was doing in the first few episodes of TNG, and he's still doing it. It's bad shit, but he's doing it.
So let me ask you, because he has sort of a unique, the way he speaks, not gait, that's for walking, you know what I mean.
Vocal gait.
And you said, I think last episode, Stars, that you actually kind of like it, because it does make him sound a little bit unique. Did you like it in this episode? Because when we watched the trailer, it was not good line deliveries, but I think in the episode overall, it was okay. It kind of came and went. I don't know.
It's fine, but it's like it feels a bit inconsistent. Like it doesn't quite like it's not quite. And yeah, there were moments where it like that kind of measured cadence.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it makes sense because like he is a character who is like in control of his emotions, but other times it kind of gets in the way of his line readings because like I don't know if it's a case of his acting ability isn't quite there or if it's the direction. But there were moments where I felt like he should have been emoting a bit more obviously, but his cadence would get in the way of that, and he can't break it, as it were. So yeah, I feel like it was kind of getting in the way. That's my kind of feeling on it.
Auto, I think I know what your worst's going to be. Best worst.
See. Now, normally I would go for that first scene as my worst, and they summon the mental image of someone snapping latex gloves on as he's, building this robot. But I'm not going to go there. Because at the end, they have this little ring and the boys are doing the dance fight or whatever. It was terrible, like jousting. And then they bring in the children, and it's like, boy, could this episode get any lower? Like, we've already had gratuitous sex scenes narrated by Rade. Now we have to add the children because they're the key component to really making this a culture and a society. And it's like, I had enough of that in Toulouse, The Fateful Lightning, which the only reason I remember that title is because the episode is legendarily bad and how it dealt with children and their integration in the series. So that'll be my worst moment. Best moment. They're on the bridge, and Becca and Harper are trying to convince Hunt that they're just thugs. They're pirates. The what are they called? The bugs. The Than.
The Than. Yeah.
They're like no, don't go out of your way to help them. They're just pirates. And Confucius Rev Bem goes, "Do I not destroy my enemy by making him my friend?" And Hunt goes, "Thank you." And I thought that was so funny. Because Dylan's trying to convince him of the whole Commonwealth thing, and then Bem chimes in with his little like ancient Chinese wisdom, which I found hilarious. And then Hunt's reaction, "Thank you." So that was I got a good laugh out of that. That was my best moment.
Okay,
Idle.
I can't pick a good moment. I'm gonna go with my worst. My worst for now is I'm just gonna take the sex scene. It was just you can appreciate on a certain level. And the need, there is no need for any sex scenes in any of this. You can get the implication by them walking into a room and walking back out again. This was pure TNA, especially with the kind of her walking on all fours like a prowl tiger, and that very, very, and that's a trope in itself, and that very kind of like, let's sexualize.
I will say,
the person who's desperate for work.
This one involved 2 consenting adults, so
that's
at least it's got that going for it.
That's true. We give it that for a plus point, but that on top of Rade talking about how he's going to cheat at Go and how that's a metaphor for the entire Nietzschean race is wild.
What a great juxtaposition.
Yeah, it's just wild. Like, you cheated. And like, don't you? Like, no. It's a metaphor. How I'm going to betray you in several years' time. And he was trying to tell me! No. Yes, okay, that was what he was trying to tell you. My best moment? I don't know. I suppose I'll give a shout out. I suppose I'll give a shout out to Kevin Sorbo being actually adequate this episode and having a modicum of not being awful. As much as we don't like the guy, he was actually fairly decent in this episode. So shout out to Kevin Sorbo on this one. God, I feel dirty for saying that. I need to clean myself up. How about we move on to, because we've been talking about this episode for far too long.
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5. Associational rating norm -3. That's much too low a rating.
It's much too low a rating.
Seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
Good lord, put me out of my misery, someone. What is our rating criteria for criteria? For the, I'm stumbling my words as much as Kevin Sorbo did in the early scene. Please.
Please take me out of my misery. Gentlemen, how many David Attenborough-esque Rade monologues about sex out of 10 would you like to give this episode?
I was going to go just with a classic, like, how many Nietzschean children? Because, like, whatever number we give it is going to be way too low. But, yeah, it's got to be the...
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be the monologue.
I'm going to take the rare position and go first. I'm going to cut in there. I'm trying to think what I would come back to this episode for. Like, it's not as bad as Toulouse the Fateful Lightning. That is just objectively awful across the board. But it tries to be something better than it is without making the effort to try. It's like me doing my homework in school. I did the bare amount of minimum to get myself just through the week's lessons. And that, I think...
And now you host a video series about Andromeda.
Now I do this.
Dude, his classmates are now doctors, they're lawyers.
It's a good job I don't do this for a living. I'm going to give this a 1 David Attenborough monologue about sex. Please, auto.
Stars.
Oh, stars. Go on, stars.
All right. So, like, the problem is that there is good stuff in this episode. Like, there are good scenes. Like, I can point at an actor and go, they're doing a good job. But it's like it's trying to be a Trek intellectual piece about an alien species while also being obnoxious TNA and not even good TNA. And it just... Yeah, no, there's no real reason to come back to this. Like, just watch a YouTube clip of Hunt and Rev Bem having their conversation and skip the rest of it, really. I don't know. It's not as offensive to me as Loose the Fatal Lightning, whatever the fuck. It didn't have quite as much obnoxious Roddenberry sexism as the pilot. It was still present, but it was, like, removed a bit.
It definitely had that Code of Honor Angel 1 tinge to it, though.
Yeah, just a little bit. But I'm going to have to give it 3 David Attenborough-esque Rade monologues about sex, and I feel like that's probably being a bit too generous, but it's how I feel.
That's good. I had this weird feeling watching and then reviewing the episode. And I guess I would kind of liken it to if you went to a museum about something awful, a genocide or something, and you're like,
okay.
No, I'm going somewhere with this.
You're not going to compare this to like Anne Frank's or something, are you?
No. And it's like, historically when it happened or whatever, it's a terrible subject matter to read about. But it's an interesting subject matter to read about. Like there are threads there that you could investigate. There are discussions to be had about whether things should have happened this way or that way.
Okay.
And as we're talking, I kept finding myself talk about good points in the episode that I actually liked. I did like Hunt and Tyr at the end. Hunt and Rev Bem. Hunt in general, which is maybe the first time that he's been great. He was great in this episode. Well, good. I won't give him great. So, yeah, it was outside of the first scene, all the sexual stuff was consensual, more or less. So, hey, for this series, that's a high watermark. So I'm going to go ahead and give this 3.3 David Attenborough monologues about Nietzsche and sex out of 10. It's like a fascinating study. I wouldn't recommend anyone actually watch it, but it is fun to talk about. the threads there that they've tied in a few things. We're going to get more Rade apparently, so like there's backstory there. I do think they are developing Tyr, even though they don't really develop the Nietzscheans great. So I didn't enjoy it. I don't think you'd enjoy it. I enjoyed talking about it. 3.3.
Fantastic. Well, this brings this episode, Double Helix, and the last of our Andromeda first fives, to a 2.4. Would you be interested in knowing how we've rated the average of all the episodes we've rated so far and where we think Andromeda sits? And it's very strange also that you mentioned your rating, because this now Andromeda sits at a 3.3 as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
He
is the master of tiering.
He is. He's predicted to put it straight in there.
No, that would be Keith Hamilton Cobb.
Well, we've finished. This is finished Andromeda for now. I don't know. I'm actually surprised I managed to convince you guys to actually watch this. Because, and I'm glad you'd never watched it before, because that was.
I don't hate it. I don't think it's good quality necessarily, but I don't hate it. So.
But
there's, you know what? There's not diamonds in the rough, but there's like an agate.
One
in
good
the
episode.
Rough. There's a piece of quartz in the rough every now and then.
There's a very cloudy amethyst in episode 4.
It's pleasing enough to the eye. It'll tell me, how does this stack up against Star Trek in general? Like a 3.3. What's that like average out to compared to like an average Star Trek episode?
Yeah. Let me have a look. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, let's see what episodes this sits.
Yeah, like if these 5 episodes of Andromeda were one episode, how would they compare? What Star Trek episode would we liken it to?
So it
actually,
would be
TNG season 1. What we've gone through the early part is also 3.3.
No, there you go. This would be slightly better than The Battle, which got 3.2. Not as good as Captive Pursuit, which was a 3.5. Not as good as Angel 1, so it gets beaten out by its own competitors, but definitely better than the Magics of Megas 2. which was a
I feel like we're being unkind to that TAS episode.
I think we are as well. It was just a wild ride, that entire thing. But so Stars, we're going to do another first 5. Tell us what our next series is going to be. I'm rather excited for this. We're
going to watch the 1966 Batman because I've never seen it and I want an excuse to watch it. And I want to watch it with my 2 best friends. And I want to have a good time. And you know what? I feel like it's of a tone where even if it's a quote-unquote bad episode, it's still going to be fucking hilarious. Because that's just kind of the general tone. But I get the feeling it's going to be low-key amazing. I am hyping myself up for it. Maybe that's a mistake. But I'm here for it. I feel like it's going to be very unlike everything we've done before, but I want to do it. I'm excited.
I know Idle doesn't like to do editing, but if you want to send us off on a good note, we should just re-record, have Stars go, "Hey Idle, how does this stack up?" And then Idle goes, "Oh, I'll check my spreadsheets," and then looks in the camera and goes, "I can't read." That's the note we should have gone out on.
All right, we'll end it. All right, start again. Right, go on, Stars.
So what's my cue? Sorry.
Line.
No, that's all the effort.
The problem is I wrote it down. The problem is I wrote down my cue, but
I can't read.
There
On that note, stay hunt. We'll see you next time. Bye.
On the Starship Andromeda.